Welcome to the Tenant Podcast. We are enjoying a little vino in the studio of Joe Ziegler this Friday afternoon. Joe, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Appreciate it.
We met at the beginning of the month on First Friday, and I was really taken with your paintings and especially the music stuff that that you do, which I think is really, really cool. I'm really drawn to the one that's on your website, the Sister Rosetta.
Oh yeah, Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She was an awesome contributor to rock music, and I'm happy to hear that because that's one of my favorites. If I can pick from all of my children, which are my favorites, that's definitely one of the portraits that still sticks with me a little bit visually. Like I've got that painting in my mind a lot.
Yeah, and that's the one you have the video of where you do a time lapse. Is that the same one?
Yeah. So started a YouTube channel a few years ago, just putting little pieces up of this is how the process looks.
Right.
And then I realized that it works really well to assign one of the songs that I've been listening to as I'm painting these portraits.
Right.
To sort of set it to it, and depending on the pace of the song, the movement in the time-lapse video sort of jumps around, and it really looks kind of neat. And to condense 58 hours of painting into that 3.5 minute long video makes it a little bit more accessible from a 360 degree, seeing the whole process, painting from tip to tail.
Right.
And I did that for all 7 of the Black Faces of Rock series that I added 2 years ago before we exhibited actually here in the main gallery.
Okay.
And so her and Prince and Max Roach, Nina Simone, John Coltrane, and a few others are also on that YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's Nina Simone there, I believe.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
And that's an incredible portrait of her.
Thank you.
Chuck Berry, I mean, I grew up listening to his stuff, so that kind of resonates with me a little bit. I love Chuck Berry. And
what's cool too, him and then Angus Young, jumping across the stage, that was a Sister Rosetta Tharpe trait.
Is that right?
Was something that she worked on, played on. That was part of her performance.
Okay.
That I, like so many others, even attributed to Chuck Berry,
right?
Or AC/DC, depending on when you came into rock music.
Exactly.
And it's so cool, this whole series, because I didn't know who Sister Rosetta Tharpe was before I started this series, and I did it to celebrate and pay homage to these people who've become icons.
Yeah.
Not so generally entwined with the foundational laying of rock and roll as a genre, but more as this way to personalize those stars. The images that we so often see of folks like Chuck Berry or James Brown are, hair flying all over the place, sweat dripping off the microphone, down the guitar. It's not, a pensive, thoughtful moment in that person's life. And that's one of the things I kind of try and capture in these portraits, because the development of rock and roll, like the careers of many of these people, were so intertwined and intermixed, and then unfortunately whitewashed most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And Elvis Presley, but you don't know Big Mama Thornton.
Right.
AC/DC and Angus Young, but you don't know that actually came from a Sister Rosetta Tharpe performance, one of several that she did on the other side of a train depot.
Right.
They sort of set, there's
I've seen that video, and it's amazing video. It's like
such good video.
Yeah.
And the performance that was captured there. And this is something that I see as necessary for archival recognition of these creators who paved the way for so many other rock musicians. And here we are, still coming into this, still learning. And when I learn of a new artist that I didn't realize, it's not only a reflection of my privilege to been, I guess, absent of that, but then it's also indicative of a way that like my life is now enriched because I've learned. And I didn't go into making this series, the Black Faces of Rock series, with the intention of being lauded as a teacher or even a preservationist of Black culture. I started it because these were people that affected the music that I've listened to my whole life, and I don't see enough of them. Right. And in each painting now, I see a lot of each of these artists.
Right. I even think, the British invasion of the United States, the British rock invasion of the United States, they really brought the African-American, or I don't know, Black music from the 30s on to, Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and, those guys. Howlin' Wolf. Yeah.
Howlin' Wolf. Was a big one. Yeah. Let's see, we got Muddy Waters right here. Yeah. Who was a major connector, interracial connector of blues musicians, and his relationship with Arthur Chess of Chess Records was at the time a very unprecedented friendship, but they built this relationship based off of the professionalism held by Muddy Waters and Arthur Chess as well. Yeah. And I think that those relationships too need to be remembered. Yeah. And brought into the discussion of where rock and roll came from.
Right. And there's a couple really good documentaries, really making that connection. Absolutely. That I've seen, and it enlightens you to, being a white kid from South Dakota, growing up, I didn't know any of this was the connection. I just loved Eric Clapton or, Rolling Stones or, all those, but they're all influenced by what was happening in the 30s, 40s, and 50s with the Black musicians,
And, you brought up Rolling Stones, and there's another story of Robert Johnson being introduced music-wise, not the guy Robert Johnson. Right. To Keith Richards. Mick Jagger had heard this guy playing the guitar, playing his blues music, Robert Johnson, and he introduced the music to his very proficient, awesome rock and roll guitarist, Keith Richards. And Richards asked him, okay, cool, so that's Robert Johnson. Who's the guy playing the other guitar? Because he heard two guitars going on.
Right, because this style of playing makes it sound like there's more than one guitarist. Right.
Well, he was able to pick with a lot of thumb picking, pick that bass line out, and then strap through the treble strings the melody while he was also informing the bass line. So there were times where he was playing, and another famous, beautiful musician in that regard, Django Reinhardt, his ability to play both the bass line and the melody independent of each other with just the same guitar in two hands. It just blew Keith Richards' mind to hear this. And, a lot of the people that Keith Richards, as a guitarist in the rock world, influenced are, countable right in the many who were influenced by guys like Robert Johnson. And the history just isn't there. I shouldn't say that it's not there entirely, because there are remnants of a lot of this history, but there's so much of it that's been bought out or burned that to know what the actuality of the genesis of rock and roll was is almost impossible, but to at least pick up the pieces and, find the references, do the research to understand who these contributors were. It's not to say like this is a racial thing.
Right.
Rock and roll should be a much more racial thing. It should be welcoming to anybody. I mean, the rock and roll and punk music later on especially was defined by this willingness to accept those that society otherwise
rejected.
Put out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And the way that we've built rock and roll as an American society on the tenets of blues, soul, R&B, and slave music is sad if we don't incorporate the actual history of it.
Right. Absolutely.
So
history's important, and people, I think in this day and age, we have all this, all these great resources available. I can get lost on a rabbit trail easily, by Googling an artist I've never heard before. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, they were the writer of that song, or they influenced all these people. I mean, that's important stuff, and I'm old school. I still like looking at the liner notes of an album and going, oh my God, I didn't know that so-and-so played on this, know?
This bassist was on track 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I could hear that guy. It sounded familiar, but those riffs sounded familiar, but I didn't realize that was actually, because that guy was playing on that album, know?
Well, and the more I listened to jazz music, and the more I listen actively to jazz music, the more I realize I've got some favorites in there. And the way that Art Blakey drums, Max Roach too. I know a lot of people would put Max Roach above Art Blakey as far as ranking their greatest jazz drummers of all time.
Right.
Art Blakey had this sense, and it was a sound, another white drummer to liken it to would be Ringo Starr, who was not the world's greatest drummer, but might have been the best drummer for the Beatles because of how he played.
Yeah.
You could hear him play and kind of know that it was Ringo. You can listen to Art Blakey and there's a signature to every single tone. The way he hits the ride, the way that he crunches down on that snare, it's separable from a lot of jazz drumming that you hear.
Right.
And I mean, Max Roach kind of then took a lot of the avant-garde steps to create, drums as an instrument standalone, because you don't just listen to somebody drum, except if you have a kid who's learning how to play the drums in your basement.
Right.
You don't just listen to drums. To come in and revolutionize that world, it's amazing to me, because you think you've heard music before, and then you hear a musician who comes in and it's just like, oh, you ever seen somebody pick the guitar up this way though?
Right.
And I mean, nobody could play Chuck Berry's guitar. Chuck Berry's guitar sounded like shit anytime anybody else picked it up and tried to play it. He had settings cranked up or cranked down, he had so many different little things. The action was unbearably high on the guitar. So you needed monstrous fingers to be able to manhandle that guitar. And, people would be saying, Chuck, I think you need to get your guitar restrung or set up or something. It sounds terrible. And he just, give it here. And you just sort of slap it down and start playing. And he was intuitive as a guitar player and self-taught.
Yeah.
And he didn't really have the tools afforded to him that most technical learners would have. And so it was all about action with him. It was the movement. It was learning this distance compared to that distance and how that relates to the open E tuning or what have you. He was so good at just being able to pick it up and go, just run and rip. And you wouldn't want him trying to play like a classical song on the electric guitar. You'd probably find other people more proficient, George Benson, who could play beautiful arpeggiated riffs all up and down, but it wouldn't sound like Chuck Berry.
Right. And he does have a very unique sound,
Copied a lot.
Yeah.
And so influential on so many people, you know?
Well, and it's these layers then, the influence that a guy like Chuck Berry took from Sister Rosetta Tharpe and then passed on to these future generations. I came into rock music after already having listened to, growing up, old tapes of Blind Willie Jefferson or Book of White, Son House, Elmore James. Like, this is what my dad had in his tape player when I was growing up.
Wow.
And then he would also listen to a ton of Cream, Jimi Hendrix. He listened to less Rolling Stones. We had a couple of Beatles albums, but there was a very direct line
to the
established to the blues. By the time I heard Clapton playing, I was already hearing like those rock tones in the blues music that I was sort of raised on simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's funny how you just listen to music, you come into understanding and liking music because your parents liked it or your friends liked it, and you have no concept, or you need have no concept for what that person looks like, who they were, how difficult their life was, what part of the country they lived in.
Right.
One of my best friend's wife is from De Smet.
Oh, is that right?
That I have a bunch of friends out in the Sioux Falls and Vermilion area.
Right.
So like, I've got family in Sioux Falls too, actually. Yeah. It's funny to me that any white kid in the Midwest could pick up a tape player and 2 seconds later be listening to music that was recorded, just minutes from the Mississippi Delta.
Right.
Recorded in Muscle Shoals.
Right.
That's why I love music. It can transport you like that.
And I think the benefit of living in these times with like streaming, YouTube and streaming services, like I watched a documentary on Muscle Shoals and then the Wrecking Crew that did all the session work for the Beach Boys and just phenomenal stuff. And you're like, you just make an assumption that, the Beach Boys are playing all their music, but actually it's all session players,
right.
And there's long list of music that they all were playing. I mean, just having access to those, a documentary on Robert Johnson, there's like 4 or 5 of them I've watched. And I really didn't get into Robert Johnson until I met Todd back in, the late early 2000s. And
good on you, Todd.
Yeah. I mean, you had that CD of Robert Johnson, and he's not my favorite, to listen to, but I totally respect where he took it personally, where it went from him after he, moved on and died, and and Eric Clapton and like the laundry list of what we just talked about. I mean, I totally respect that. So
for sure. Yeah. Hard not to look at a guy like Robert Johnson and not mythologize his existence, right. Because he's so inextricably linked to that legend of selling his soul at the crossroads,
mm-hmm. right?
That I mean, freaking Ralph Macchio's in a movie about it.
Yeah,
can we just go take a second to get a little more white about a black legend in America?
Thank you, 1980s.
It's fun. I mean, we giggle at it, but it's one of those nervous giggles.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you also look at like a lot of Robert Johnson's lyrics. They were not altogether feminist or egalitarian. by any stretch. Chuck Berry, not the world's greatest human being, but he, like so many artists of that time and of the music, throughout the I would say 1915 to 1965, that growth, that development of he, like so many artists, just they were very actual people who then went on to do what we consider to be extraordinary musical things.
Right.
And to separate the man who was Chuck Berry from the music that he was capable of is even hard. There's a lot of dark water that is hardly navigable within that. And it's hard to know, like, if I should like this person because I like their music. The discussion for me, though, is a lot more interesting when you take into consideration that these people who laid the foundation for rock and roll music were riddled, especially at the time, maybe more than even now, with difficulty for just being black in America.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more punk than to have somebody be like, okay, no, I see what you're doing. I hear what you're doing, but we're going to shut it down because we don't want it to have the power that this could have. And then saying, okay, fuck you.
Right.
This is rock and roll.
Right.
That is rock and roll.
Right.
And that's something to me that I think goes along with the rock and roll will never die. It's this feeling, and it's a generational thing that gets picked back up. I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing trying to be a part of it, other than
it speaks to you, and it's part of who you are, and good on you for not only including these people of color, these black musicians that are male, but recognizing the female artists that were very much influential. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I mean, there's Aretha Franklin. I mean, I love the series. How many do you have in the series?
Tom Morello, behind that David Bowie print right there. Can't really see him. You can see his hat.
Yeah.
He's the 21st.
Oh, wow.
In the series.
I didn't realize you had done that many.
It started with 12. I've had some folks say, like, wow, this is really cool. You should not paint anything else for the next year and try and make this 40 or 50. But it's slow growth when I'm also trying to keep the lights on with commission work, etc.
Exactly.
So the beauty of it, though, is this is a series that is endless to me.
Right.
And I've got 21 of them finished. I've got over 200 names of other black artists that who contributed to rock and roll.
Right.
And that's because whenever I exhibit this series, there's a list with a blank page, just has lines on it under a little header that says, who did I forget?
Right.
Like, include who needs to be included. And that's where I learn about folks like Odetta. That's where I realize the real impact of a guy like Fele or African Bambaataa to rock and roll music, where I wasn't even making these ties. Like, sure, at some point I was sitting there thinking, like, oh yeah, of course, Etta James, she'll be in this series. Of course, John Coltrane, Miles Davis got to be in this series. Even from, like, at that time, it was a cultural thing as much as it was a musical thing. For Miles, at least, he was a cultural influencer with what was becoming rock and roll music. And it's sad that so many people think of Miles Davis and think of drug problems and that sort of stuff. But it was much later on into his life and career, in the late 70s and early 80s, where those issues were prevalent. Guess where? In all of rock music, because everybody was getting drugs to rock shows at that time. I guess that's all to say. Talk about a rabbit hole to jump down. It's folks throughout time who have influenced the entire shape, musically, culturally, professionally, appearance-wise. Some of the times the ways contracts were written, clever ways just to make sure that even if it was a white club that these black artists were going to play in, that like by the time they got there, they had no choice but to pay the artist.
Right.
And then whether or not they allowed them to perform, you know, the money had been exchanged. I mean, that's small pittance paid for like a torturous way to treat another human being.
Right.
You know, to reject that. But from those dark times, from that difficulty, it is definitely born powerful words.
Mm-hmm.
So
just going back to art, man, this is a great rock and roll podcast now, evidently. But can you talk about the technique that you use to make those portraits?
Sure. Each of the portraits are 2 feet by 2 feet in size. They're painted on a white surface, use repurposed OSB plywood. When I first started painting, my brother was I lived with my brother, and we were working, he was working on finishing up a master's degree, and I was working on trying to make art for a living. So we were living together, and he was working, putting himself through school, helping general contractors in the area. And one day, by our trash can came in like 6 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of this stuff. And it was right around the same time I was like, maybe I should try painting in this style, because I had used markers, fine point markers, to create my work on paper or on canvas shoes previously. And that was kind of how I had thought to help evolve my art to that point. But I found all of this OSB plywood to be a perfect surface to see if I was good at painting too. Right. And if I wasn't, whatever. I didn't go out and spend a bunch of money on canvases, or, you know, it was a quick enough way. I could just put it right back in the pile by the trash can if I didn't like what I saw. So I took the plywood and I whitewashed it. And then I poured out just a little bit of black paint. And it's acrylic paint. Used the tip of a number 2 pencil, sharpened down, dip that in the paint. I'll get several dots, different sizes based off of how much paint is left on the tip of the pencil, before I've got to go back to the well and dip again. So there isn't a lot of black paint on these paintings, except for, say, you know, one like Sister Rosetta Tharpe or Chuck Berry, who have the entire background built in. Mm-hmm. You'll notice a lot more of them have no background right now, because it's an intensive process.
Right.
Sometimes bringing in a background helps pop the piece.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I like them where they are. Once I finish the outline, I call it done.
Yeah.
But it's fairly simple from a procedural standpoint. I literally just avoid putting my hand in my wet paint and keep dotting. You know, if there's a hair here, there are more dots. If there's a wrinkle or a crease in a finger, you know, there are more dots, or they're closer spaced.
Right.
But the beauty of pointillism is that it's a very simplistic form. It's there to create the impression, or almost a screen in front of what you are seeing, of what you're seeing, mm-hmm. because you can still see the texture of the OSB, of the plywood in the background, if you're looking for it.
Right.
But your eye doesn't, after it's been painted, naturally go right there.
Yeah, it doesn't register
mm-hmm. it. Yeah, especially in the ones like you said, with like the Chuck Berry,
darker backgrounds.
Yeah. What's interesting, I keep looking at Chuck Berry's portrait, and I can't help but it reminds me of, like a really grained photograph.
I was thinking the exact same thing, like it was shot with a high speed film, and that you're seeing that grain.
So it's similar. I mean, call me a human rapiniograph. The way that newspaper text was printed for years and years with varied densities of little dot matrix circles.
Yeah.
It's effectively the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not beholden to the same bitmap. So I can put a dot in between. I can put it on the line. I can reject the automated binary code by which a rapiniograph would have to, choose one side of the line or the other.
Right.
But it's largely the same process. I don't try for photorealism with my portraiture as much as I try to make sure that as you are looking at the subject, that subject is identifiably that person.
Right.
I don't stop until I'm happy with, being able to look at that portrait from any angle, any distance, and saying, okay, yep, that is Tom Morello.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about protecting the reality of the visage of their likeness.
Their likeness, yeah.
Well, the other thing I find interesting about these portraits is they're not the typical portrait that you would see, let's say, that you would shoot with a camera. Maybe Muddy Waters is, but like the James Brown portrait where he's looking down and his finger on his, it's just a really relaxed, really not posed kind of portrait. Chuck Berry looks like he's trying to hear something, I love Nina Simone, just the look. That's more of like a classic portrait look. But some of these just have a feel like you just like captured them in a moment. They're not like portraits. Well, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
Some I try for it. It's hard to with this process not make an eyeball just look like a black center of dots.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to make sure that as you look into these portraits' gazes, you can really connect a little bit more. So the reflection in those pupils is really important. The shape not being perfectly circular. Louis Armstrong being a good example of that. He had a very not circular set of Jeepers Creepers. Look at his, take a look at his peepers, man. He had big eyes,
right?
Sure, but they weren't circular in the way that we too often portray people.
Right.
Is, there's a nose there. I see how the nose looks. Draw a nose there, and it's after you've been like, oh, great, I finished the nose, that you're like, yeah, but that's not their nose. That's a nose, but it's not identifiably, Aretha's nose per se.
Yeah.
And that's an element of the reference. A lot of times I'll use reference photography, sometimes very famous photographs.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use those as the main reference for these pieces. Like the piece behind you of Freddie Mercury with the Queer Folk of Rock series, that's at his last concert ever, the World...
Oh, the Live Aid concert?
Yeah. The Live Aid concert, it's him peering out over his piano when he's just about to get ready rocking. And, to know what his life was challenging him with at that time, for him to be caught in this beautiful photograph of, with tongue out, such joy, at least him saying, whatever world,
right?
I'm taking this on the chin.
Yeah.
That's the kind of image that I want to capture these contributors in. And I hadn't seen a picture of James Brown until I'd seen, him in that very pensive, quiet, young look.
Yeah.
It can be harder to get young photography of all of these folks
to
use as reference, but that was there's intent behind it, because I want people to be looking at Robert Johnson and kind of feel like they're with him a little bit too closely. You know, I had him on my studio wall for a good while, and now I guess Nina is the new patron saint for me in the studio right now. But whenever I would look at Robert Johnson's eyes, and it was a very famous photograph. I had to use a really well-known photograph of him because
there aren't many, are there?
There are three photos of him 3 years ago. Huge news. They found a fourth one.
Right.
And it was like, what? This is just our catalog on Robert Johnson images just shot through the roof percentage-wise. This is crazy. But that the look in his eyes, there's a mania there that was mostly, as I interpret it, his connection to the music. He had a guitar in his hands at the time. It's like that man had a guitar in his hands. He was thinking one thing, and that was, how can I play this? He wasn't thinking of anything else. And that connection with his sold soul to the devil, you know, I had quite a few of those moments too, where I was just like, yeah, staring contest with this guy is rough. But, you know, whenever I'm thinking, oh man, you know, I think I got some good work in today. I could probably knock off a little bit early. If I catch sight of Nina, she's just looking at me like you aren't done.
Yeah, you're not done yet.
Really, guy?
Keep working. And
yeah,
I mean, with energy for this series, with energy directly to the Black Faces of Rock series, I need motivators like her.
Yeah.
And she is largely a reason lately that, you know, I'm still moving with it. And, you know, if I am still painting when I'm 65, 70 years old, and these are, you know, still important to me, I hope that I still look at this portrait and say, wow, I should get to work, because it's an endless lesson to learn.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful portrait.
It is.
It's stunning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that one a lot.
So the video for that one is on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I had to make sure, because I credit all the artists, and make sure that people know what song and what year. If I can find the record label, I'll put that just on a little bit. And this was actually, I mean, it's I Put a Spell on You, which is by and large Nina Simone's like most famous song as far as performances go. I think she probably got asked to play that one more than any other. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's a Screaming Jay Hawkins song. Another Black Face of Rock, who's on the list, who needs to be added. And it never really stops. It's a continuous battle to help fight, just even to say like, hey, I see it. Like, there are still a lot of people in this world who are white and proud simply because they are white, and they vote just like anybody else does. And most of the time they're not voting in the interest of our Black citizens.
Right.
And a lot of times they'll not have anything else to vote for, and they're bored, so they'll vote against whatever would help people of color out.
Right.
And I'm not part of that discussion at all, because I refuse to be. It's funny to me to get a little outside of it and just run on this thought a little bit, that politically we are where we are. It's not surprising, because there's, you know, political theater is exactly that. It's theater, and it's punched up. It's meant to prey on our emotions and get us to think viscerally and pick a side and
feed our fear.
Draw the line in the sand.
Yeah. Right? And the people who live with you in the sand on 98% of the plains of this land, not including maybe the 1% if you're lucky enough not to be in the poorest 1% of American people right now, people in America, or the wealthiest 1%. 98% of the people are still not recognizing that they're on common ground almost everywhere they go.
Yeah.
And it's punched up that it's this battle and you got to fight it. And, I guess I tune in and out of social media here and there. I'll see stories and keep an update, make sure that, I'm on my phone. I'll check the news for the day just to make sure the red button didn't get pushed and I'm 2 hours late to building my bomb shelter, or getting to a flight to Calgary or somewhere. I hear it's nice this time of year. At least beats nuclear winter. But I guess I've tried to. I haven't tried to isolate myself from the issues therein, but I'm lucky to not be around a lot of people who would vote that way.
Right.
So I don't see it as much. So maybe when I'm in my studio world creating my art and I'm not paying attention to the real and evident pain, maybe more pressingly against the indigenous and native folks of what is now Mexico. Another series that bears painting is Latino Faces of Rock.
Right.
Absolutely, man. That'd be a cool one.
I mean, Richie Valens. There's a lot. I mean, there's an endless number of portraits that should be painted, in my opinion. Whether or not I can keep cranking on them and keep putting out more and more of them is one thing. But this day and age, man, I don't know what else to do. I'm a straight white male in America who cares a lot about how people are being treated.
Right.
And I'm not represented by our president. I'm not represented by a lot of the people who support our president. And it's strange to me. It's alien. It feels foreign to me. I was walking into King Soopers a couple of days ago and I saw a guy with a Donald Trump hat reminding me that he's the 45th president of the United States. I get that. I know who Donald Trump is at this point. And I guess I'll take this moment to encourage all of the Tenet listeners to boycott Trump brands, Trump Tower, Trump Industry. Just don't buy his shit. Don't buy his shit, whether he's selling it or he's trying to get you to listen to it on some press conference. There are much more constructive ways to build our community. And as that guy who very well probably profits from having a straight white male president, I'm much more interested about getting on level with everybody on that 98% plane. In between that giant hyperbola on the other side that separates all of the rich people from the people who are just living in the world together. And man, anyway, that's my rant there.
So on that note,
yeah,
and that's fine, man. Like, that was good. I want to ask you, do you feel that artists are doing their jobs as far as making social political statements with art? Do you think they're doing a good job? Do you think they're doing their job?
That's one of those things that I'm in a weird space for. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I know so on some levels. A lot of the most important art that's being made right now is rock music too. Pussy Riot, incredible femme rock band.
Yeah.
Who, I mean,
from
rose to fame during the Crimean occupation and all that shit.
Are they Russian or Ukraine? I can't remember.
I
think they're
I'm
Russian.
not even certain.
Yeah.
They are a Russian band, but they have ties.
Yeah.
They definitely have.
And talk about taking
Ukrainian
a bold
ties.
statement, bold stand in a country that, we're very fortunate, we can have these political discussions and not go to jail. But
true.
to have the intestinal fortitude to stand up against a regime that will imprison you without a blink of an eye, we should only be so bold and brave.
Yeah. And so there's bands like that, local bands, Denver's own, some of my very good buddies. They're called Cheap Perfume. And they just came out with a new album late last year. They write a lot of politically driven rock music. Artistic statements being made by artists who reside and work in states that would imprison them for doing things against the monarchy or against the tyrants of those spaces. Ai Weiwei in China is a huge activist who has challenged immigration rights and laws just by way of his art. So yeah, absolutely. But I'm equal parts happy and proud to say that, like, it doesn't have to be my art that, like, puts people over that hump of thinking that, okay, there's culturally conscious conversation driven by art now. And there are so many artists everywhere who are just making that thing because they know that thing is hot right now, selling right now, doing the thing. I fall prey to it too, thinking about who might be the audience for these pieces. And I think some artists who are doing a great job are seeing the market for their art and then saying, burn it down. Mm-hmm. It's Banksy auctioning off his $1.5 million piece and shredding half of it the second that it leaves the block.
Right.
And the value of, think about all of the money that is being spent right now. I'll say, dare I say, wasted on creating political attention for this candidate. That we need this much money. Bernie Sanders, hey, I need a favor. And, all of these things that are getting asked of the people of our country specifically. I'm bouncing around country to country here a little bit, but that money, that $1.5 million that I hope went to Banksy's pocket, or if he burned the check, that would be even better. That would be just brilliant to me.
Right.
Whatever, because that's the Caddyshack Ty Webb having a $10,000 check on his nightstand. Somebody saying, "Hey, Ty, are you going to cash this?" And he's, "Oh, keep it," because it was more important that he won the tournament and that he won the check than that he had the money represented by it.
Right.
Whatever you got to do, I guess. But that $1.5 million, that's like one of 3 Super Bowl ads
right.
for Banksy saying, forget what you thought about what's important about art and how to get your great painting on the block. Have Sotheby's shitting their pants because, oh my, no, what happened? It's destroying itself. I don't know how to stop this. Those mechanisms that allow us as artists to destroy our work, to literally and figuratively deconstruct the art. The value of that is so intrinsic. It's invaluable in many ways. The fact that there are so many artists just trying to make commerce out of art is cool. Mm-hmm. It's the tiller's wheel. It's the tiller's wheel moving us closer toward the evolution of art, and the tiredness that jazz may have felt at the end of its avant-garde days after Ornette Coleman blew the lid off of what it meant to just blow your horn. Everybody thought it was over after Coltrane. He brought his plastic horn to the show and was like, "Yeah, I can do some things you haven't heard yet. Check it out." For 47 straight minutes, I'll do it. You know, he was, you know, that guy too. Everybody making all of this art all at the same time, building it up, whether it's musical or visual or audio. You know, this is a kind of the podcast is a relatively new sphere of the recording industry.
Right.
And the fact that we are all working toward that, I think, is more invaluable from a personal standpoint, and insistent on personal change than it might be some major statement creating a new style of art as we know it. You know, with Duchamp putting a toilet upside down, graffitiing it, taking a picture and saying, "Oh, this is Dada art. You haven't heard of that before? What are you doing?" You know, the next time that happens, the Banksy might be as close as we're getting to it right now in the avant-garde. You have no idea what I'm up to. I'm just making art that you see, art that you don't. He made a theme park that was it was Dismal Land, and it was like a dystopian Disneyland.
Oh,
all of these characters dying, you know, and it was a statement made to point out a lot of the Chinese Disney ties, where Mickey Mouse is like a freedom fighter in some cases, and then he's also like the destroyer in others. Just pointing out that like the Mickey Mouse that we know, the Disney sweatshirt, the Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt that we grew up looking at in the Disney stores in the mall, it was all coming from a sweatshop. It was all unethically sourced. And in this time, we are so conscious, so able to be conscious, like the woke generation here.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know one thing about black rock music, Google it. You can become a freaking master. And to get to that level of mastery with your craft, even just as an analyst, like it's there for you. It's also the other side of that blade, being that if you didn't read that article when it came out on BuzzFeed 6 weeks ago, like, you're so behind the times, like there's no way you could ever catch up. Like, there's so much content out there. It's very hard to navigate the waters. And so, like, do I feel like artists are making statements enough with their art? I hope so, because there are a lot of people, so many people know how to draw. I believe that everybody is an artist, you know, however that's taken. I believe anybody, given a few rudimentary tools, can learn how to draw, can learn how to paint, can learn how to make art, even, you know, the painstaking kinds that some artists put hours and hours and hours into. I guess the statement, though, that is being made by many of these artists is like, well, I'm going to do this as long as, like, it makes financial sense. But until I can make financial sense of it, I'm not going to be able to make as much art as I want. Or unless this makes financial sense, I can't spend enough time to improve and get to this point, which I think almost it's bearing evidence to a different issue, that we perceive the creation of art in such an economic way. Like, why we choose to dance or sing isn't because we're like, oh man, this is so that I can make people watch me dance and sing and maybe somebody will pay me for it. It's because you were dancing or singing in that joyous moment. Right. And it was this connection to your spiritual self in this physical realm. And that statement made by an artist, whether it's evocative intentionally or aggressive, or if it aims to unsettle its viewer, I feel like there's only so much value that can be gleaned from that, because at some point that shock value art, the horror film, the gore scene, that sort of stuff, the shock value art that gets put out quite a bit, is really preying on our serotonin. It's sucking this angst, this very visceral, active, and I guess maybe not visceral so much as it's a mental energy that gets put into this. We get drawn into, sucked into these pieces of art, and it's hard for me to arbitrate whether or not that was the point of the artist, or if the artist has license to manipulate his viewers that way, because they might or they might not. I would hope that if asked, that individual artist would be able to come to their art's defense and say, like, yeah, this is, I know it's a little bit like gruesome, but like people are being slaughtered right now in this part of the world. So I didn't want to sugarcoat that.
Right. What's the statement that's behind it, the intent?
So it just kind of depends. And I think because there's so much content, so many streaming services, so many sketching programs on the iPad that are available, everybody's got the tools for it,
right?
Access to make these things. So much of our art that gets created is iterative of a theme, an idea that's already been done. It's age old. And I guess therein lies the discussion. Is it more important to sing with your own voice, that one that nobody's ever heard before? Hi, I'm Bjork. Or is it important to just get in and sing with the tribe and be part of the choral voice, the unison that is shared culturally, to be part of the droning hum? We're closing in on 5 o'clock. There'll be a horn honking on to Calumet,
right,
in the next 20 minutes. That's how I know it's 5 o'clock.
Right.
It's funny how that works, and that hustle and bustle of the city that builds this, vibrant arts district out here, brings us all together to create that art. Also kind of puts people at ease or at dis-ease, depending on whose studio they're in, whose art they're making, whatever. But it's these generations of this art, and the few pieces that survive over decades and decades, and the few artists whose work is made, popular enough, is viewed enough by enough people to say, wow, we should really preserve this.
Right.
Monet is in town.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Da Vinci was in town before that. It's an incredible time for art in Denver. And there's a lot of art being made, but it just depends on how bad the traffic was that day. That my response will be, oh yeah, art's cool. We love art. Move to Denver, make art with us. And like, all right, are we at capacity? And who's making what art? But again, I'll say, like I was saying my political statement earlier, is I've intentionally kind of tuned out from a lot of the parts of the art world that I don't want to be a part of. Because like, as much as I'm on a search to be a career artist and to, sure, have people view my art and be changed by it or be impacted in some thoughtful way, at least.
Mm-hmm.
That's there. And I'm driven to maintain that, but I'm nothing special. Like I'm here making art, hoping that people like me. I'm here trying to get people to think about why they've thought this way. And I don't hear a lot of people saying, this artist, look at this iterative bullshit. Because I'm not friends with assholes who are so ready to bring their critique out that they aren't going to first be compassionate about how nice the blending is, how nice the shading is. And like we here at ReCreative have a very didactic mission. We want to bring like learners here. We want to bring educators here. We want workshops to be held here. We want people with their curiosity to find themselves here with the tools and resources and teachers, hopefully, to learn to do what they want to do. So as far as the real purpose of art in our society or artists making their statements, it can be just as much a message of compassion as it needs to be this statement of, Ai Weiwei, I mentioned earlier, he's made very political, angry, like prodding at the Chinese government, like, are you going to come after me? Because I dare you. Same way maybe South Park has gone after the Washington Redskins or Tom Brady specifically. I gather they don't really like Tom Brady a lot. But that does tie them to Denver in so many ways. A couple of years ago now, Ai Weiwei's installation was tens of thousands of hand-painted rocks that were painted to look like sunflower seeds. And the installment was a raised bed of these hand-painted sunflower seed rocks. And you could go kind of walk in it, rake them. And the purpose of it, I believe, this is a horrible years later paraphrase of it, of course. Don't quote me. I think that's another epitaph reading. The one other we thought of was like, I should have been here 15 minutes ago. But don't quote me on this. But it was a collaborative work. He had a team of hundreds of artists painting these with him. And it was meant to show that like there are so many hands that go into a creation like that. And to walk through this giant gallery-sized field of rocks that look like sunflower seeds, I can only imagine what he was thinking when he was like, sunflowers seeds on rocks. That's what I'm going to pitch to the gallery. And they're going to take it. We'll get this. We'll book that. There had to have been some really, really particular political motive for his thoughts on that. To get in there, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Well, that kind of brings me to a question that I've been thinking about is, where does your creativity, your ideas, where are they generated? I mean, do you have a sense of like something that maybe is a little odd? Like, where does that come from? And then how do you tap into that? Maybe, I don't know if that question makes sense, but
yeah, it's different sometimes. I mean, my studio right now is a great moving mess of all of these different things that I'm working on. I've got a wall full of paintings that are just like things that I was like, man, I really want that to be a painting for me. I got a couple of album covers from vinyls that are some of my top 10, top 20 favorite vinyls. A lot of it is musical. Mm-hmm. I'm also an Arsenal fan, the London Football Club, soccer club. There are a lot of guys we meet at a pub locally to watch the matches. And a lot of times it'll be a noon match. So we'll be at the bar at like 6 a.m. There's 5 o'clock in the morning to watch our team play. And I've got a piece hanging there, working on another piece. A couple of my favorite players here, Alexander Lacazette and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who are 2 strikers for Arsenal. And this is what they do to celebrate a goal that they've collaborated on. You just go up very officially to each other and shake hands and bow. And they actually were in town last summer on an international tour and played the Colorado Rapids. So we got to watch them play, and just that's a part of it. I'm not so bogged down in my righteousness that I can't, I guess, have that fun and see that, watching a few guys who are getting paid £250 a week on these ridiculous contracts, similar to, Joe Flacco's contract here in Denver, or, I was going to say somebody on the Denver Nuggets, but they've done a really good job of budgeting well. They've built up a lot of young stars. So maybe it's not quite the same thing, but a lot of times it's the energy from my friends.
Okay.
At the pub when we're talking, we're jazzed up about the club or where it's going. We've got a new manager and we don't look like absolute shit right now. And so it's been fun to watch this seemingly new team mid-season just because they've got a new person at the helm. It's a terrible answer to question, Wes.
Well, the question was probably a terrible question because I don't know if any, even as a photographer, I do a lot of landscapes and stuff. I get maybe, I don't know if I can identify where I get inspiration from, obviously other photographers before me and that kind of stuff and whatever mood you're feeling or whatever. But, I'm just kind of curious what makes people tick, like artists, like,
For me right now, at least, it's work-life balance is a big thing. Being happy to go enjoy, watching my club play, or to enjoy sitting there writing these stupid pun t-shirts, these author t-shirts. It's always something different. And when I moved into this studio last year, I saw this wall right off the bat and I said, I want to make a mural wall. I want to find a way to paint just giant stuff. And of course it's occluded by, like I said, the moving mess of everything I'm working on. But there are a couple of things that, I've thought of through time. I made a note of it once that 2 weeks later was like, that's actually a really good thought. I'm going to do that. Building this little board. This piece is going to be a sculpture, halfway to a sculpture by the time it's done, and probably super heavy. So I don't know who's going to want it, but it's the thought that's stuck with me. And I guess I'm patient enough in my work, not only while I'm working, which is something I've learned through ... hours on end. But it's also allowed me to at least think that, like, I don't have to do this today, right now, because I'll have time tomorrow. I don't want to be late to the game because I don't want to be a bad business person trying to be an artist too. Like, it's that's navigation I'm working on, but finding my happiness at home and away from my studio helps motivate me to be here more. It also gets me thinking, like I said, I think everybody's got, a right brain. Everybody's got a creative bent, whether or not they've learned to feed that side of themselves or not. That artistic ability is inherent. It is human to me. Like, that is part of why we started drawing on caves. It's part of why we wanted the wings on the back of the old Chevy, like, because it was freaking cool and no car ever looked like that before. Now that we've kind of entered this new doldrum phase where it's like everything seems iterative, or everything is got to have some hidden meaning to it in order for it to be really valuable art. That all doesn't quite stick with me because I feel like there is so much space to move into, and it's the act of creating the art, and it's the act of ideating those things, bringing even that thought into our space and trying to elucidate it fully enough so that when it's viewed by others, it can be appreciated as beautiful. That's an incredible connection to make. And so whatever the purpose for that art, if you are starting with the intention of creating something beautiful because it was in your mind, I think that's the most important thing you can do with your artistic thoughts. And the creative mind is probably I'm going to just stab at a number, thousands of times faster than the artistic body. Mm-hmm. And so even for the most prolific of our artists, Jean-Michel Basquiat, he painted and drew all day, every day, the entire course of his young life. And he lived a very riddled life. It wasn't something that brought him, brought him great joy. It didn't bring him great sustained joy. That whole manic depressive relationship to that right brain is eminent. Guys like Vincent van Gogh, going way back, at least in impressionist timelines, he always fought that. And I have lived a very privileged life, but I've also had my heart broken. I know what it's like to have life suck for you. And the compassion I'm learning to have for myself right now is something that I think is going to bear more motivational fruit for my art than anything else. So oftentimes an artist has that one flash in the pan idea that's just supernova bright and it explodes, and then there's no coming back from it because they blew up more than just the art. It's their life on top of it. It's everything that they thought that they had built. And I'm trying to build a life for longevity here. My fiance wants to live until at least 85, and I've got 10 years on her. So it means I got to make it to 95 at least. And God willing, I'll be painting that whole time. The thoughts, as long as I can write them down, to me, are just as valuable as soon as they've become a concrete thought as they will be after it's finished painting. And
I think that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so dot by dot, man.
I'll tell you, that's a great answer, and I think people will maybe they think that, or maybe they have that idea, but they haven't really been able to say it the way you did. I didn't think about that. The thoughts that of something that I'm thinking today may impact whatever I'm doing creatively. Ooh, that was horrible. 5 years from now, or whatever.
And it's all about, it's a practice. Life itself is a practice. And the reason that I see my work like I see it is composite of everything else that's happened in my life to this point. Sure, not to say, it's only everything ever just built up. That's what's important, is waiting for it to culminate. You do have to go out and get it a lot too. You have to really strive to identify that within the artistic community and the industry of art, the commerce of art itself, as opposed to construction or real estate or stock trade. The industries dissimilar to art is that after you've built that idea, your business plan, if you enact it and you do it properly and you invest in it, like, you'll have your business and that'll be your work. And then it shuts off. You close your office down and you go home, stock exchange closed, bye-bye. now it's time to get into traffic and start honking and yelling at people until I get home and can catch the last half of Monday Night Football, or I'm laying a very wet and broad blanket over that whole lifestyle. I hate to shit on it because, like, again, I always come from a point of privilege, just being able to try and make this work as a business. But when you've got art as a business, it doesn't stop when you go home. That thought doesn't stop coming into your brain just because you punched, the clock. So being able to and willing to focus on and keep gravitating toward that creative energy without exhausting it. And saying, like, okay, that thing just took me 60 hours to paint. I'm not going to touch a paintbrush ever again. That's what happens with most people who try pointillism. It's a common high school art project. Mm-hmm. And most people do it the once. And I hear that commentary a lot. They're like, oh man, this is crazy. I can't believe you do this. Like, I tried it, and why would you still do this? It's so painstaking. And for me, again, like, being a peripatetic, loose cannon, hard to ground a lot of times, manic in my own ways, slow to focus, easy to distract. It's that reminder that at the end of the day, like, you can see the progress that you've made with your work, even if, like, that work is just being comfortable with sitting there for 40 extra minutes and not fidgeting your foot around, making the table jump around as you're trying to create fine art. What I have learned from this process of living my life as an artist has been wonderful for me. It's better now that I've found a way to focus when I need to focus, to write my ideas down, to sketch my ideas out when they do come, to allow that creative thought to come to me and not to force it. I think whether or not it's truly original or thought-provoking or thoughtful, it gets me creating it with that intent, thoughtfully, with the hope that I am learning from the process. And I guess you could call me patient, but I'm just doing it because I feel like the next day I wake up after having done this and continued to do this, to make this practice a life's work, that I will be calmer. I will be in a better place. And like that work-life balance that I told you I'm, motivated by, it's not something that I am willing to sacrifice just so that I've got so much art that the next time people visit me on First Friday and are coming through, they're gonna, barely be able to walk in here because this whole studio is full of stuff. Maybe that'll happen, but I'm not going to force that time spent thinking about these projects, all of these thoughts. What the next series that I'd like to exhibit is going to be, being mindful to make it something that isn't just another art show at another art gallery, something that's going to engage the community in a slightly different way. I mean, it's still just art on the wall. How many ways can that move you? Depends on who sees it.
Let me ask you this question, Joe. You mentioned your dad's music collection, and obviously you were surrounded by music at a young age. Did you grow up in an artistic household? And what set you on this path? What did you always do art? Did you know at a young age that you wanted to do art and be an artist? How did you come into that?
I don't remember knowing, but home videos, like, what do you want to do when you grow up, would tell you, 8-year-old Joe, 12-year-old Joe. It's like, yeah, I want to do art. I want to make art. And I don't remember that stuff. I was obsessed with playing soccer. I was obsessed with trying to set the Guinness Book of World Records for longest time spent dribbling a basketball. And I was out in my backyard for 5.5 hours before I was like, this is not a proper application of my time. Yeah, so I guess I did always kind of know that I wanted to do art and be an artist. I grew up in a household where my dad, listened to his music down in his office in his basement, where he had his guitar and his little Series 10 Les Paul ripoff. It was just a little electric guitar that my cousin made and traded for him. And my dad learned how to play some slow hand. He learned how to play some Chicago blues. He learned how to play songs that he liked. And we had a little 4-track recorder that we would just record the weirdest little songs on, having fun jamming with my brother. My sisters were both forced to play piano until the eldest was like, I'm not doing this. And my folks were like, okay. My brother and sister played for a long time. My second eldest sister probably hasn't touched a piano more than 5 or 6 times in the last 6 months. She's a busy mom now, but she could still probably play the shit out of some Rachmaninoff. If you give her sheet music, she just jumps right back in. So I saw her dedication. She rehearsed a lot. She played a lot of piano. She hated a lot of the hours that she put into it, but evidence was definitely well and obviously rewarded. She's very good at it. My brother is also a pretty damn good pianist. He'll mess around. He'll teach himself how to play Desperado or Bohemian Rhapsody. And, every time I see him, he'll kind of poke around on his keyboard and be like, hey man, check this out. You haven't heard me figure out the fill into the chorus yet. Here it goes. And Piano Man and that kind of stuff. So we've always, I guess, been fairly creative. My mom made costumes for us for Halloween every single year. I got to be a toilet. I got to be a Coca-Cola bottle. I got to be a taco. And granted, I was the only kid in the family who was like, Mom, can you make this? My brother was a train one year where he was like, he had suspenders on that carried the cardboard train. So he was also the conductor inside the engine room. We were always doing creative stuff, construction paper galore and glue sticks. And yeah, I was encouraged to be artistic a lot, but there were also some times where my artistic inclinations probably tested my mother to her limits, just because I would hear her say something about how maybe we'll take the basement door off, to the basement, open it up a little bit. And then when they were out of town, like I pulled it off the hinges and I started carving shit into it. That wasn't the best thing. So sometimes my creative inclinations weren't the creative genius of 11-year-old Joe is not seen by all. Clearly. I was in an honors class in 8th grade, and I took a couple of drawing classes in college when I knew I wanted to not be a business major anymore, but I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. And it just kind of always stayed in the back, where like whatever I was doing, there would be kind of an art piece that would come of it. And, somebody would see the art piece and also like it and be like, oh, hey, could you do something for my grandma or whatever? And it was always consistent throughout my life, at least, that when I would make art, people would see it and they'd be like, Joe, this is good. You should do it more. And I hope every young artist has that from somewhere. I'm sure you don't have to have it in order to survive and succeed and feel good about yourself as an artist, but it did wonders for me in hindsight. But no, I had no idea I was going to try and be a professional artist growing up. Maybe I just from a very young age didn't want to have regular real job. I don't know.
How long have you been doing this full time?
A while now. I've been focusing on visual art full time since 2017.
Okay.
Prior to that, when I would be home from touring, I'd drive around in my little 4-door sedan with a box of t-shirts in the back and a small singer-songwriter acoustic PA, hoping that people would want my new t-shirt with something I drew on it that had my band name on it. And I did that full time from 2009 to 2015, 2016, where I started realizing I could paint. I would come home from a tour and, I at one point made myself a pair of shoes with a Micron Pigma marker, very fine point archival ink, just on blank white Vans canvas shoes. I took pictures and I put it out online and folks saw it. And half an hour later, I had 7 people say, like, where'd you get those shoes? I would like a pair. It was like, oh, well, this is a nice little way to keep making money when I'm not playing shows every night and when I'm home. And I think it became this, at least it evolved to this 2016. I'm still wanting to tour and play music and visit all my touring friends throughout the country. But like I said about the work-life balance, that's hard to do when you're on the road 6 weeks every 6 months or so. Chagrinedly, I've not played as much music lately, but it's kind of like I've played enough music. I've played way more music than I've made paintings. Mm-hmm. And I'll be hosting a 24 hours write a record challenge on the 25th and 26th coming up here a couple of weeks, where all over the world songwriters will just sit down in their studio, in their room, in their apartment, whatever, and try and write and record an entire album and then post whatever they get on their social media and share us a link so we can see what all is happening. And that's a way that I can stay connected to my songwriting buddies, all over the place, and still engenders some goodwill. Hopefully the next time I go out on the road, people will be like, oh, cool, Joe's out again. They won't be like, took you long enough. I haven't been back to Pensacola since like 2013, and I'm sad about it, but that's a long ways away. Sorry, AK and Beeve, my 2 best buds out in Pensacola, because I didn't really expect that when I would be coming home and spending 30 hours dotting a pair of shoes to make $150 profit on selling those shoes. What is that? $5 an hour? Not good. When you're used to living on peanut butter and banana sandwiches and bags of chips from the grocery store, you don't need a lot of money. And that's still my motto. Is like, I don't need a lot of money because I don't spend a lot. I really
like peanut butter and banana sandwiches, by the way.
Isn't that Elvis's favorite too?
It was. Yeah. And he would put some others, honey, and peanut butter and banana and honey is good. But if you're going to do that, you might as well like really go all out and put some popcorn in there or something. Just really mess it up.
Crunch.
Just play it up. Yeah. So I've been at it a while now, and I guess full-time artist, if you include visual and performing arts. I suppose I'm working on over a decade now of a recording career too. There's a new album I'm just not yet finished with vocals on, and another set of acoustic demos for an acoustic album that'll probably come out later this year. But
wow,
I'm getting married, so when am I gonna? Yeah, maybe I'll tour in 2021 or something. But doing this way at least allows me to control a lot of my hours. If it's shitty weather, I don't have to think about whether or not I'm going to get over the hills east of Tucson to get to El Paso. Mm-hmm. It's, well, hey, if I bring some work home, I can work on a painting while I'm home, or work on promotion. It's a whole world as an independent artist to try and build your product line and market yourself well so that people will look at your art and say, hey, I'll support that. I'll patronize that. And it's a weird world, but I think I'm well equipped for it just because I've played enough shows in empty basements and weird DIY punk venues, basement house shows, awesome coffee shops that just let me scream for a couple of hours. And they're like, it was all right. Come. So you're from Colorado? Do you come through here often? How many times a year are we going to have to allow this kind of shit? But funny. The thick skin necessary to be a career artist in any form, I think, grew a lot thicker because I really strengthened that aspect of myself through years of emailing 200 places to get 15 venues booked. And it's not any easier. It's similar in a lot of ways, but it's just art. It's like I'm not done playing music. Mm-hmm. I don't have to be. It's not like my time here on this earth as an artist is done because I started doing other art. And just I hope that it's good enough art and that I'm not being horribly gaslighted by everybody who's come and supported me or congratulated my work in any way. It feels like I'm really building something that could be lifelong, between Joe Ziegler art folks and my band Leftmore folks. That's all I could ever want out of it, is to have the space to be accepted into the space that just lets me say, like, hey, this is the work I'm working on. And people are like, wow, paintings. I thought you did music. It's like, yeah.
Yes, both.
I do.
All of above.
And at some point, the songs will rush out. I've written 130 or so songs and 7 albums. And this will be our 5th Write a Record challenge. Our most prolific year, we had 24 artists write 124 songs in 24 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be defined in a genre, in a style. It's what strikes me and what's at the forefront. If I sit down and I really want to write a song, I'm going to write a song or a couple of lines maybe until I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll put a few more dots into this or, whatever it might be. Watch a little soccer, who knows? It's a lot easier for me to balance this full life that I'm finding and developing with my partner, close to home, close enough to my family, close enough to her family that, we're part of that community too. That flexibility for me to play a show at a coffee shop or put an art exhibit into that coffee shop really helps me, I guess, stay motivated too, because I might get tired of playing music at some point. I've played way more shows than Chuck Berry ever did.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
He also got paid for, right, I'm pretty sure, every single show he ever played. And I played some shows in Wyoming at 7 degrees wind chill in unheated basements, abandoned buildings and stuff. I wouldn't trade it, but it is a little bit cushier, I suppose, to be cross-legged in a studio pontificating on myself as an artist and why I am where I am right now. Most of it's just been blind progress and a willingness to continue to surprise myself, remind myself that I said a week ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, yeah, I want to make art. Yeah, I love it though. And it's so cool to be welcomed into this space, to feel like I belong here.
Right.
Because there are so many great artists in this building alone.
How many artists, if you know, how many artists are in this space?
We have 12, but the people who run this place are super creative musicians. Chris Scott is an incredible guitar player. And I don't know if he'll ever listen to this and be like, "Oh, you son of a bitch." You know what I'm talking about. But
so what's the name of this?
Yeah, tell our listeners like what this is and where it's located.
So we are currently podcasting from my studio at ReCreative Denver, on 765 Santa Fe Drive. Come on down. First Friday, any month of the year. If it's the first Friday of that month, we'll be here. We always have new art, new creations. There's a community wood shop in on the main floor, which is behind a couple of the studios, which is behind the main gallery, which is right in the middle of the building. The front entrance off of Santa Fe is a community reuse store. So when you guys were coming in, I was remarking to Chris, 200 pounds of donations came in today. And that 200 pounds is siphoned down to whatever can be resold, generally at markable discounts, so that people can come in and they can find stamp cutters, they can find mats and frames and stretcher bars and oil paints, because they don't want to invest in a brand new set, but they could experiment with, a cheaper used set. There's all kinds of stuff that comes through. It's an awesome little store down there. And every month we've got another display in the main gallery, which is featured and opens on first Friday every month. So it's always in motion. There's a new show. It's a new style of art, something else to be striking, to walk into, to just see and be able to be creating in proximity to all of the other artists. I think there are 12 total here in this space. There are also ReCreative Seattle and ReCreative Austin. So they're independent, but in that way they're also connected, if only by brand name, different formats. I think they're community art spaces, each one. But this is a unique space because of all of the artistic armory in the back half of the building, combined with the fine art center in the middle, along with that creative reuse store. And it's a nonprofit organization, ReCreative is. So it is truly about identifying the artistic community here and taking that community into a setting, I guess, welcoming them into this setting where we create and make. And the wood shop is a community wood shop, so you can take a monthly membership down there. And if you do, you are also availed a lot of services by the one and only Matt Shaw. He's my bandmate, best buddy. Shout out to Artser Shaw Creative Woodworks, because he's a fantastic woodworker and artist in his own right, and he's a great resource to the Denver community for a lot of reasons. But there's always something happening creatively here. Workshops, upstairs, downstairs. There's somebody learning something about art here, and to be in a space where I feel welcome and then also valuable, like I'm bringing something to this group here that's making this awesome, unique space in the heart of the Arts District on Santa Fe. Something really incredible. I'm hoping I'm here for a long time.
So tell our listeners the different mediums, the different things that you do to make money as an artist.
Mostly I guess I take on private commissions.
Okay.
A lot of time that's me building a custom canvas from scratch, going down to the wood shop, using the miter saw and cutting stretcher bars, cutting the canvas to size, stapling it in, gessoing, painting, talking to the folks about, what they want me to paint for them. And the custom art, I guess, is a big part of my income.
Okay.
Once a year, twice a year, I'll work on a mural or a community piece, depending on that. Sometimes income's generated from it. Sometimes I volunteer to help get the mural up on the wall. Mm-hmm. Just kind of depends on the call. And like I said earlier, as far as being an independent artist, trying to make commerce out of it as well. Having the time and the information necessary to reduce the time that needs be taken to apply for a grant, a community call, because a lot of cities or states will have a 1% clause where 1% of sales tax is sanctioned for the creation of art in new development. So a lot of times those communities, say City of Denver, will say, all right, we've got $8,000 for this mural project on this block. What's your idea? What are your qualifications? Building those chops so that I can send one of those applications in and feel really good about it. Like, oh, these people, they would do well to choose me and my design. It's not only more competitive, but it's more money. It's harder to jump into because there are people who've been doing a great job of it for years and can apply a lot easier than somebody who's a little less organized like myself, to 5 jobs in a week when I think doing one a month is like heroic. I don't try and make money. I guess I do, because like I have a studio that's, displayed almost like a storefront, and I guess there's that.
Right. And this has to be sustainable. I mean, this is how you're making a living. So
it does. But like I said earlier, and this go back to jokes I used to tell about being a touring musician. It's like, I'm one of the wealthiest people in the world, but like my bank account wouldn't know it. Like it's a determination that like, I don't want to have to make a lot of money. I want to make money. I want to be compensated for the great amount of work, hopefully the great amount of work that I'm able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that money is only the tool to provide sustenance. And I don't know, I guess there have been times where I've been immature and jaded and flat out petulant about sticking with it and doing it because the idea of getting an office job was just, no, it's not. It's work. And getting into an office job would be a great opportunity for my bank account. If it would be a lot easier for me to afford a standard American lifestyle if I were in some other industry. Like, I've wanted to make art, be this artist, do art literally at all costs. It's for years. It seems like it's cost me as much as it's ever made me, and that's a fair exchange,
right?
In my summation,
for your freedom, right?
Yeah,
an art life affords you freedom.
It does. It also kind of can isolate you and make you an asshole to people who love you, who are sick of saying like, Joe, like this is not the real world. This is not reality. You need to make money now. You need to do this. But I make art. And if there's commerce driven by that, sweet, so be it. That is a point of it. And if I could make more money, get more of those city jobs, the cushy government work, if you will. Like, please W-9 me, please. Give me on that payroll. That is really cool, but it's not important to my art to have it valued at a certain price. I put price tags on my work, but if somebody walks up and sees, like when folks walked up and saw Sister Rosetta Tharpe and bought the original, they said, well, I don't know what it is about this painting, but we need to have it. And there's a connection that gets drawn between that person or those people and those pieces. And I could say that I'm meant for it to happen, that I planned for it, that I wanted it to happen. And that's why I rated it at that price, because I knew somebody would come along and say, yeah, I value it at that price too. If it weren't me adding up how many hours went into it and adding up what I need to / want to get paid for doing this work, I would probably still do the work. I would still make this stuff. This series would still exist. The Black Faces series is definitely not about a financial driver. It's about changing the landscape of images. When people Google Ray Charles images, it's, a new way. And it's really, really, really awesome when somebody goes to my Etsy shop and finds Janis Joplin prints or whatever, and I get to ship it out to United Kingdom. That's wow, whoa, cool. Hey, Mom, I'm an international artist. Look at me, Mom.
Yeah,
that is cool.
It is cool.
But it's more about the fact that somebody wants my art out there. At the end of the day, as long as all the bills are paid for and I am not, starving myself to live. Granted, we talked about the peanut butter and jellies. I used to pride myself on operating on $3 a day, food wise. So like to be able to do that so that you do make enough money to bring home at the end of the day is important for all the listeners out there who are trying to form a business plan for their art. But otherwise, don't take my advice. My advice will lead you down a path of searching for happiness outside of monetary gain. The money's a fun little game to play. Be like, hey, can I make a few bucks more than I made last year? Can I surpass the poverty line, by only making art for people? That is a challenge for me and for a lot of artists. It always will be. It's not about making the money. It's not about selling it. It's about finding people who see that art and say, wow, this is something I want my space to share. This is something I want on my wall. And as personally as I take my home life now and like my little apartment living space with my fiance as we're working into this new lifelong journey of being together, like the space on one's walls are that's valuable real estate for me, not from a financial perspective, from like feeling honored just to have been thanked for making that piece. Like that is cool. And that's something that I don't think that the money, well, maybe if I get $1.5 million for a painting, a 16 by 20 painting, like Banksy does, maybe my perception of money would change a little bit, but
it's not going to change why you do art. I think you can listening to you can take the money away from it. You can probably even take the accolades and the people that buy your art away from it, and you would still do the art. It's really about feeding your soul, it sounds like, or,
Yeah. And just,
I use that term a lot. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But it does. It's
Tenet podcast, feed your soul. It's good. I like
it. Hire him to do voiceovers for us.
There you go.
It's got a ring to it, man. It's funny how that works. I get into these patterns when I'm talking, when I'm painting, when I'm trying to get out of these patterns. And still, it's so much of that recursive, that thought keeps coming back, that it rolled off your tongue so nicely that once that it's like, you want that feeling.
Right.
And to roll a painting off of my fingers, I want that feeling. I want to be able to step back from a piece and look at it and have that same awesome connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm not also a little bit of a narcissist, because like I think the ego plays in to all of our dailies, but it's this act of making good art, knowing that I'm making good art and having had enough people tell me, Joe, this is good art, great job, that makes me feel like, all right, I've done it. I've somehow convinced people that I don't have to put on a suit and tie today, and I can, enjoy a glass of wine on the job. Here we are.
Right. It's validation, and it's the highest compliment. One of our artist friends, Bob Ragland, says every sale is a miracle. Every art sale is a miracle. that's the way he looks at it.
That's
you
cool.
know? And I think that is cool. It's a realistic way of looking at it.
Yeah. Well, and you can go to art school to learn how and take specific classes to learn how to market yourself as an artist in this world. And folks like Lady Gaga, who the Juilliard scholar, really, really learned how to do it on a global scale and learned how to make, to go in and say, this is what my contract says. You signed it, pay me cash, and then I'll go perform. But the sensation of performing, connecting to what she's created, I can only fathom. I haven't put myself in Lady Gaga's shoes a lot. But now that I'm doing it here in the moment, I guess I'll just get back to this thought that even, going to school for it, Lizzo is a more contemporary, last couple of years contemporary, at least. Not saying Gaga's outdated by any stretch. She's still so freaking good. But Lizzo also, she went to music management school so she could learn how to do what she could do. I get marketed to in emails every couple of weeks from this guy who started this independent entrepreneurial focused toward the music industry, but it could apply toward any artistic craft. I get emails from him saying, hey, like, did you want to buy this pack of tutorials? Did you want to upgrade this? Did you want to see this? And we've got so much to learn about art. We got so many people willing to teach us, or find the way to monetize it and make it your business too. That I think that right now we've probably got more people. It's so much easier to start your own website and, get a little shopping cart set up, a little store set up on your website now than it's ever been on the internet. So there are millions of sellers. There are also millions of buyers, but finding the pairing, finding that person who wants to buy that is kind of miraculous and hard to do. It's hard to just act like yourself and then make art and then still be able to connect to people who see your art and say, hey, I'd like to connect with you. And that's one of the reasons why when you wanted to do this podcast, I was all over it, because talking to people helps see it through, and the podcast generation here wants to hear people talking about it.
Absolutely.
And talking through their processes, because I'm sure there's some kid out there who aspires to a ramshackle life similar to mine and is wanting to work toward that and willing to work toward that, who would probably heed my words well. There are also probably a lot of people who would hear me saying this, saying like, dude, that was an hour and a half of hot air. This guy just talked about how he doesn't know how to make art a business, but he's a professional artist.
But you are doing it.
Yeah.
You are doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I've as much as I care to, because there's that, I lit on it earlier, just that I'm not here to try and compete with anybody. I'm not trying to get into the market so that I can get my slice of that pie. I'm just here because this is what I want to do. And all the encouragements aside about, go follow your heart, follow your dreams, do your stuff. It's like all of that aside, practice what you want to do. Practice compassion for yourself when you aren't achieving what you thought you were going to achieve. Find your space and be yourself in that space. Create in that space. Don't let anybody tell you like, oh, this is bad or this is better. Or if they do, take it for what it's worth and consider it, try it, play around, move, throw it out if it doesn't. This is like me after not all that many years of really feeling like I'm doing this. And so many artists suffer from that imposter syndrome, feeling like they are just iterative. They're never going to be Coltrane. It doesn't matter if they're Ornette Coleman. They're just not going to ever get to that point. Those aspirations are toxic then. If you're trying to fight for comparisons, because it's all based off of your perspective on that guy's life anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of people might want to be revered as Billie Holiday. Nobody would choose her upbringing,
right?
Her
She had a
life,
hard life.
like nobody. So it's kind of empowering, I guess, to just take what you have and use it and focus on it. Be there with it. Don't worry about how you aren't that good at, being an executive. If you're an artist, chances are good you aren't a good executive anyway. Be yourself and follow your heart, but do that anyway. Do that when you're walking past that guy at 7-Eleven who asked you for $1 yesterday and you finally have cash for him. Like, wherever your heart's telling you, like, yeah, follow your heart, but it doesn't stop when you're like, oh, okay, I got all the paint on that canvas. It never stops.
Right.
You can be freaked out by that, or you can be lit up like that. It's Las Vegas all the time. Electricity and fresh oxygen circulated into that casino floor all day, every day.
And no clocks.
There's something moving, or the one that's busted. That's my nuclear wall, though. And if that clock doesn't advance another second, I'll be happy.
Tell me about all the different ways that you sell your art to make this happen.
Well, my favorite joke back from touring days, once Square got a little bit more popular, people were like, "Oh, do you take credit card?" My favorite joke. Yeah, I take credit card and I'll give it back to you too. It's because it's a dad joke. That changed a lot, and that wasn't what you asked. What you asked was how I sell my art, not which avenues of accepting money I work through. But I've made sure, I guess, to say that I'm available via PayPal and via Square, via the new hip ways, Venmo, so that if people say like, hey, I have funds, I would like to support your art, I don't have to turn them away because they aren't writing me a check or giving me cash.
That's pretty smart. I don't think a lot of people think that way, but that's something that's never been brought up, and I think that's a valid issue, a valid thing.
It's easier to catch more fish when you've got multiple nets.
Yeah.
And there are different varying levels of comfort that people have with their money, and through different programs. And it's not fail proof, but the more that you are able to take people's money for your art, the more people are going to pay you for your art. I sell out of the studio here. I'm also on Etsy. I've got a Facebook page.com/Joe Ziegler Art. I have an account on Redbubble, which is another art selling site, which is one where you can kind of just create a design, upload it, say, I want people to be able to buy this on pillows, coffee mugs, paper, anything. And then they basically license your art as that agreement. You say, I want $40 from this print. They'll mark up whatever their site is. That's still not an answer to question.
Well, that's another
revenue stream. So.
But it's another way. And like I said, I haven't really activated that much. Most of what I do is by word of mouth. I have been at varying points in my career much more vocal on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Just being a part of those social communities, those online social communities, will get you to find people who are also making art, who also have their small communities of followers. And the best way that I guess I've found to enable buyers to my art is to just have as much as I can on the merch table when I'm touring, different varying price points. That's something that I think a lot of artists don't get to, because it is hard to keep inventory of hundreds of prints. But if you can manage an inventory of print sales, you also then have what I like to call mailbox money. When somebody from the UK is saying, "Hey, do you have Elton John?" And it's like, "Why, yes, I do." Whether or not you get the opportunity with those buyers to say, "This is why Elton John's part of the Queer Folk of Rock series. This is why, I took time to make this a painting," or not. The online aspect of sales has definitely been important. I would say that most of my sales come from people friends or friends of friends, who have come on to my work because somebody shared that video of Sister Rosetta Tharpe on their page and said, "Wow, look at this guy." And then that person's come to me and said, "Hey, could you do this portrait?" And a lot of times I find it's like a 7-year, 8-year, 9-year sales cycle. People who commented on that original thread of the custom shoes, coming back 6 years later saying, "Oh, do you still do shoes? I have expendable money now to put toward art, and I'm becoming an art collector of sorts here now." And that's exciting to see. It's hard to say that the best way I've come to generate income is by getting people to like me 5 years ago, but that's where I'm at. I do have that page and try and update it. Same thing with the Instagram, but I don't think I've updated my Instagram for months. Something again that I probably relate to, trying to save a little bit of my mental health before I am doing something repetitively to try and sell another piece. But it's finding people who see what I do and value it. And that's not always going to be really easy. I get referrals, commission work, people who saw me do a painting and there's, "Oh, could you do that on a ceiling?" Like, "Yeah, give me a shot. Let me get up there."
And before we started this today, you showed me pictures of a commission you just finished, and tell the listeners what you did there.
Yeah, that was for a college friend who's known that I've made art, for almost a decade now. Well, no, longer, 15 years. Who saw my work and came back to me a couple months ago. Her family's dog had passed away, and she sent me a picture and said, "Could you do something commemorative of Marv, good old Marv?" And I jump at those opportunities. When people have an idea, something that they want as a painting, but they don't necessarily feel like they could paint it themselves and get what they want. Whenever there's an idea there, whether it's a pet dog, it's somebody's grandma, the classic Chevy that their grandpa or their uncle had that they just really love looking at, whatever. It makes my personal connection to that work that much greater. So I always do a little bit of follow up and, try and get a little bit more of the story about who Marv was as a dog. And, 13 years old and he passed away, and the picture that she sent was from his last day. So it was a really, really special moment for her and her family. And it's actually going to get to Minnesota tomorrow.
Wow.
And it's a surprise gift. So that'll happen a lot. Like somebody will say, "Oh, I want to get this gift for my significant other," but don't tell them. I'm friends with both of them on Facebook or whatever. So sometimes it's like, "Oh, well, I can't post that on social media yet because I don't want the cat or the dog in this case to get out of the bag." But I like taking on people's ideas. I have started to take on private lessons and teach people how to make portraiture similar to how I make it. And teaching's a challenge because I'm not naturally a teacher. What I think about my style of art is that if you want to get good at it, you just do it and keep doing it and make your mistakes, learn from those. Those are a better teacher than I'll ever be. And it's more that doubt in the self that we're capable of creating that is in your way. than actually getting to where you're doing that. Some people don't have the time to learn how to do this, and they want to have the gift on the wall, arriving so that it can be wrapped or unwrapped and unveiled. And I love being that go-between, the liaison between that creative intuition and the exposition then of that piece. Making something that somebody asked me to make, that they know what this dog looks like. If I just painted a Blue Heeler mix and it didn't look like Marv, it wouldn't have been done in my mind, but it wouldn't have been the piece that they wanted to get. It's an added challenge to really be able to take somebody I've never met, or I used to tell people, like, if you want an intergalactic space battle of Sarah Palin fighting Dick Cheney on a TIE fighter and an X-Wing, with Atreyu from Neverending Story, like shooting laser beams through space at them both. Like, I could do it. I could get you there to that moment. I don't know why you would want that, but if you did, I could take that challenge on. I could do that.
You're the man.
Yeah, and it's a style of art that I am comfortable doing in differing scales on all kinds of surfaces. So I've done wedding shoes, I've done seashells, I've done Christmas ornaments, and it's not necessarily that like I want to be known for taking on being a seashell artist, but somebody's got a really special memento from this trip and they want to help commemorate that sea turtle that they saw with their significant other in that moment on that beach. Like, who am I to say? Like, I just want to get them good art. So that's that. And I guess just to put this out there, it being newly 2020 here, we're still in January at least. It's kind of a resolution for the next couple of years of mine to get better at applying for some of these larger jobs, just to take the pressure off of every $300 commission or $100 commission that I'm turning out, because those stack up and add up. But to find a grant funded opportunity to then still share my art, and generally if it's a mural, you're working with at least a small community of people who are going to get you to the wall, show you where it starts and ends, people helping you paint depending on how big it is and how big the project is. That's all stuff that eventually, as I assume, will help alleviate this pressure to like make that money and get over that poverty line, so I can feel good about being a professional artist and saying so, and not feeling like I'm also doing so on Uncle Sam's dime or anything. It's a choice, and it's a balance like anything. And I feel good about the art that I make, and the process that I've found that's most natural to me for finding commerce within that is continuing to say yes to conversations, to reach out, talk to people, see when an exhibition is due, if for 2020 proposals or 2024 proposals, getting those in there. Those would probably be the other lifeblood of my revenue, is finding a show or two every year. The Queer Folk of Rock show debuted 2019 in San Francisco. So getting out there and meeting a whole bunch of Californians, and talking to them about art and having it out there has precipitated this connection. There are more people in Northern California who know my work now, and they may not have bought anything last year. They may not contact me this year, but 2025, I'm going to get that call.
That's right.
They're going to say, hey, you know what?
I'm in money now.
Yeah. I saw this guy, but and it's my slow play. That's my process right there, I guess. Yeah. If you try to ask me for advice on how to make money selling art, it's going to be bad advice.
So do you sell lithographs too?
I don't do any lithography.
Okay.
I do paper prints.
Okay.
Of most of the originals that are in the series.
Okay.
I didn't get print photography of a custom piece like Marv, though I probably could have asked the buyer if it was fine. And he's similar looking enough to enough old healers that dog lovers abound would probably see a print of it and say, maybe.
Yeah.
But again, it's the balance in print inventory. I'd try and keep enough prints around, but not have so many prints that I'm waiting, a couple of years to pay off the investment of pulling those in. There are some printers that we work with who are able to print on alternative media, on vinyl or on plastics and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. But I try and keep it a little simpler, and it's paper prints and original work through Etsy. It's painting on whatever you want me to paint on. If it's commissions, and then it's finding bigger gigs, bigger walls to paint. A lot of times it just comes down to square footage.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. Tell our listeners, you produce stuff for just about every price point, I imagine.
I try to, yeah.
Yeah. Give me a range of pricing here as far as where things kind of start and, the upper echelon of things. Just a ballpark figure.
Sure. The paper prints, most of them run between $25 and $40. Some of the larger works, I do larger poster prints, 27 inches by 41 or 20 by 30 even, larger than your standard 16 by 20, which run closer to $50, $60. But I've done original designs on shoes for $75. Somebody just wants an artistically written, beautiful fonted Mr. and Mrs. on their wedding shoes. They got wedding toms instead of traditional wedding heels and stuff, which I thought was cool. Most of the time, though, if it's custom work, it's really based on the budget. Because if somebody comes and says, Joe, I want you to work on art for me, what do you got? I try and put it back in their court and say, well, what do you have? Because I would sell CDs, like my whole merch rack said CDs 10-ish, t-shirts 15-ish. And I would tell people, I still do, I would rather you have my work, you have my CD, you have my painting, you have my art, than I have all of your lunch money. Because it gets that way. When you're selling CDs to a bunch of kids in a 32-degree basement, it's more about getting the music out there and than making all the bucks you can, and they have to eat. Kids come up to me and they're like, hey, I only have $10 for this week for food, but I want to get your CD. And it's just like, dude, have it. It was $1.40 for me to produce. If I don't count the engineering time and my time in recording, producing it on a CD cost me $1.40. If I have a little extra, somebody gave me $20, because that happens too. 15-ish, and somebody's like, 20 is good. 20, that's 15-ish. It gives me a little bit of float, allows me to not take that kid who only had $8, take all his $8. But back to it, the print sale is probably the most accessible, price point, reliable. For original works,
like Nina Simone up there,
depends on the square footage and how much went into it. Nina's at $1,505, so $1,500. I think Chuck Berry's $2,200. That all comes into all of the black background that just takes a lot of time, even though it's just a sheet of dark. So there's that. I've done mural commissions for between $1,000 and $2,500, and it depends on the buyer.
Sure.
Because if the buyer's got $2,500 and they want their entire wall covered, I'm willing to negotiate that, just like I'm willing to negotiate a $60 gift for somebody's dad for Christmas.
So say somebody doesn't have the full 15 up front. do you work with your buyers? Do you take like half down and say, can we do, if they want to do like a payment plan with you? This is a question I ask pretty much every artist just to see what their thought process is.
I would be open to that. I don't have a lot of people come up to me and ask me like, hey, can I give you half now and work on installments for the next 6 months? Normally when somebody buys a work, they'll kind of have the money outright. But what I like to do with my commission work, at least, is I'll normally take about half down just to kind of keep the buyer's place in the queue, in the commission line.
Sure.
And then, once it's due upon receipt, basically. Once I finish the work and ship it out or deliver it, we cover the rest of it. So I'm generally pretty flexible, but it just kind of it depends on, how I could legitimize that and make sure that, I don't ever see that person again. Because the last thing I want to do with any of my original work too is have to like hound people.
Oh, absolutely.
For like, oh, hey, do you remember when we agreed to this dollar amount? Because that's not what I want to spend my time doing anyway. But it just kind of depends. Since I work with a lot of people I know, and I've got good relationships with most of them, if somebody wanted my art but couldn't get me all the bucks right away, it's not like I would throw them out in the cold or anything.
We're going to wrap this up, but this is a question from our friend Bob Ragland. He's always posting like thoughts on Facebook about how come nobody ever asks artists this. So this is my Bob Ragland question for the week.
Alrighty.
What do you do with your money when you get a big payday?
I go straight to that bank. There is nothing sexier to me than giving some financial institution all of my money. Thank you for hanging on to it. Like, I mean, the coffee can worked for long enough, but like most of the time when I get paid for a commission, getting it on the books right away, being able to show that, because I'm still at a point where I'm fighting for every buck. If I'm looking at it from a financial place, the money goes straight into that account, and then from there, like I'll kind of budget it out. And like, yeah, I sold a painting last week that I got delivered and I got paid for. It was an Aretha commission, a smaller one, a different view of her, and that's cool too because it's an extension of the Black Faces series and one of the portrait fixtures in that series. So it relates, but it's not the same. It wasn't 2 feet by 2 feet. It didn't have to meet all of the same little Easter egg requisites that I have planted on that series. I'll be honest, put it in the bank, grocery store time. Bought myself a couple of extra cookies.
But not $500 designer sneakers.
No. I actually got these. I got these half off. Facebook advertising normally doesn't get me, but I saw these and they're 50% off, so they're good.
Right on, man.
I'm like the least excited or least excitable person you might know when it comes to television advertisement, like online advertisement, the way that we're barraged by shit on Instagram,
right.
Sponsored
Stuff.
Posts, sponsored content, somebody who is making a living out of being an Instagram influencer who's coming on, they're putting on their radio voice and saying, oh, hey, want to say thanks to this week's sponsor of, basically who's paying them to put this content out. And then they're saying, have you thought about needing one of these? Like, I want to get as far away from needing anything as possible. I want to find the right tools for the jobs that I need to do and have my shit.
Right.
Be able to finish my shit and call it good. And the idea of having money so that I can then go buy that thing that I've been coveting for months or years, just never been my style. Like, I did save every penny from about 3 years of allowance to buy a little video game console, a Sega Game Gear, when I was like 13 or whatever, way back in the day. And I see the value of like building it up, but this is maybe more to the point of Raglan's quest there of like, what do you do with that money? Like, I started my first bank account as a kid when I was 10. It's like, Mom, I want to go to the bank with you. I want to open up an account so I can put my allowance in there. And like, granted, I bought enough bags of M&Ms from 7-Eleven growing up that I was fine. I had enough sugar. I was covered as a kid. I was not neglected or stopped from trying to work my way into early high sugar diet issues. But I put most of my money into savings. Like that was the coolest thing I could do with it, because then in a few years, when what really needed to be purchased was available, like I could go to the bank, and that was where the power of that money was. So right now, me fighting for the ability to say like that I'm a self-sufficient, profitable, independent artist is, well, firstly, less important for me to be able to say independent, because if somebody wanted to come represent my stuff and I just had to sit here and paint all day, like I'd probably let it happen, and maybe that would bring in the big bucks. But as that independently minded artist currently, me finding those ways to sock away a couple extra bucks here, a couple extra bucks there, to be frugal with my investments back into my company, that's really important. And if Bob's like, God, this Joe guy talks for hours and he doesn't answer any of these questions, I'll say cereal, food. I've become a creature of habit. I like having a cup of coffee every morning with some cereal and some fruit. And like I go to bed excited knowing that I get to wake up in the morning and drink some more coffee. But it's nothing extravagant. It's just what I need. But again, I don't need a lot. I just water in my plants, I guess. And most of the plants following this allegory, like I've planted seeds for, and I'll continue to water, and hopefully they bear fruit decades from now. A happy, lifelong relationship with this woman I've found my partner in, this sanctity in my own space, whether it's my studio or my home, to feel like I am a worthy recipient of life itself. Like I'm on bonus time right now as it is, because great time to bring this up. You were saying a few minutes ago you wanted to wrap it up, but I had open heart surgery in 2011.
Oh wow.
Age of 25, and I woke up from that the same way I woke up from any nap I've ever been in, plus a little extra pain, plus a few extra doohickeys sticking out of me and an IV and all that stuff. But for me to feel good about what I'm doing as an artist, as a lover, as a partner, as a teacher, as a student, as a human being on this planet, in this world, especially in a commercial part of the world where like one of the first questions we get asked every single day is, oh, hi, you're alive. How do you make money?
Right.
It's hard. It's a pitfall. We all get into that, but it's all so much easier to worry about when you realize like we might not wake up from that nap next time, like
right.
And that mortal worry that so many of us are haunted by it's just reality. And maybe that's the synthesis of all of this talking around the question. Is it comes down to knowing that I'm doing this because it's stuff that I want to do. It's done sincerely and honestly, and I could do other things. I could make more money. I feel like I'm still smart enough. Like I could do something else to generate revenue if that was the reason I were alive, I could do a better job of it. It's just not why I exist. And I don't need to know why I exist other than the fact that I do. I'm here and I want to make some art. So I'm honored that you guys would want to come talk to me about why I make art and how I do it.
And we're honored that you were willing to sit down with us and take the time that you did this afternoon, because you're taking time away from your work and producing stuff. And, time is important.
Distract me anytime, Todd. This has been my pleasure. It really has. I've got multiple hours. I could not sleep tonight if I really wanted to make a bunch of progress. The work that I could have done in this 2-hour period where we've been convening and communicating and sharing could not have been better spent, even if I were dotting away, because this is part of the reason why the Ziegler goodbye. Here it is. You guys are 1 foot out the door saying, "Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it." And, but do you guys golf at all? How's your car running? I'm out there kicking tires with you as you're trying to you got the car in reverse. Like, this is magical time too. This helps inform me this helps verify, codify. It gives me space to clarify these answers for you, for Wes, for Mr. Raglan, like for anybody else listening. Like, this is time that helps me when it is time to get back to making my work, creating art, doing all of these things. Feel confident about it, feel strong, feel smart, feel funny, feel good, and activated by everything that I encounter day to day. And I don't know, I never want to, I got 60 more years of this. Like I said, 60 more years. I got to pay attention and, find some way to enjoy my time, activate my space. And I've read enough beat poetry to know that sometimes you can get stuck there in those doldrums, and the only way to shake out of it is to have a new conversation, try something new, make a different piece of art, challenge yourself. Like, we don't always get stuck in this mode of thought where we're like, oh man, life would be better if insert clause here. If I had more money, if more people knew of my art, if more people knew about First Friday or the workshops that we offer at ReCreative or anything to that end. It's so oftentimes diluted, in fact, by all of that other stuff. When we've got so much happening, we fill up our schedules, we carry around these planners and then feel great once we're like checking our to-do lists off all week, until we realize like it's been autocratic almost. Like, we're just doing it because that's the list. That's what the list said. And we're reacting to our lives then instead of building toward it. And it's that intentionality behind my work, behind my conversations, however little was scripted or planned for this interaction or any other. It's all to the point of finding common ground and feeling good about knowing people. Like, it's so easy to get locked into that space, and easier still when you are working in the 9 to 5, 8 to 5, hustle and bustle, 40 hours a week, punch in, punch out. You're on the road with more people than you're interacting with them, unless you're at a big company. And the way we get to loathe interaction with other people, the way that we would prefer to be in our phones than having that one-on-one conversation or one-on-two conversation, the way that we would benefit from just doing this more often. It's incredible to me. It's therapeutic to get to talk to you guys and feel respected for my choices, my work, and to feel good about, like, even though my speaking voice is really, really not that pleasing. I've got a what would they say? It's instead of a face for radio, I've got a voice for silent film. but it's whatever. I'm here. I have what I have, and I'm better for having had you guys in the studio for a little while. I really appreciate it.
Right on, brother.
It's been
we
beautiful.
Feel the same way. Yeah. And your voice is fine. Yeah. Before we go, I want you to tell all of our listeners how they find you, how they find your art, and where they can purchase your art.
The most important advice I can do is say Google it. That not only helps you find me, but it also helps Google realize that people are searching for Joe Ziegler art, which is JoeZieglerArt.com, JoeZieglerArt.com. The shop on my website is literally my Etsy shop. You can also search Joe Ziegler Art Etsy, and it'll auto pop you to my page. That's the best way to buy my existing work. Joe Ziegler Art at Gmail. Again, JoeZieglerArt@gmail.com. If you want to privately commission a custom piece, whether it's a custom pair of shoes or a large painting, what have you, I'm always happy to at least discuss tackling it. You can find me on Instagram at Joe Ziegler Art, Facebook.com/Joe Ziegler Art. And I'm sure there are various other ways that you can go find me, but just don't call me late for dinner.
All right. On that note, we'll let you get to dinner.
Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and you do amazing work, so thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Todd. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Tenet. Appreciate it.